and welcome to Mostly Minnesota Music Podcast Edition. I'm Ann Tracy. I'm here with my co-host,
Heather Baker.
And we are here with Breanne Marie of the Front Porch. I know I'm going to say singers, but it's the Front Porch Sinners.
It's the Sinners. We do our sinning right on the front porch for all to see.
I love that.
I do too.
I love that. That's great. That's great. Well, we are delighted to have you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you've got a new album coming out, Juniper, on February 19th.
Yes, brand new album. It's our third studio album and our fifth studio project. We've done 2 EPs as well, but this one is, I would say, leaps and bounds ahead of where the other projects were. We did some extra stuff this time to make it our best work ever.
What kind of extra stuff?
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we did is we worked with Twin Cities-based Vicki Emerson on pre-production. I was looking for producing help, but I didn't want what I imagined in my head was an older man that would be telling me what to do and treating me like a noob. So I reached out to my network in the Twin Cities of just fabulous female musicians, and Vicki was like the top of my list, and she listened to some demos and said, oh, this is great. I'd love to work with these songs. And I don't think the album would sound half as good as it does without her help. She really was integral to how these songs turned out.
Nice. That's fantastic. Well, I got the first taste of it because you put a video out. Was it November?
It was in the fall. Yeah, November.
November. Yeah. The Central Hillside 91.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's the most rockin' tune on the album. And I use the word rock lightly because it's more bluegrass, folk, Americana. We're an alt country band, but it is the most upbeat song with just a driving beat, electric guitar, electric bass, and fiddle that doesn't take a breath. I mean, it's just, plays straight throughout, tons of cool trills and notes and runs. And then we also added trumpet to that song to give it sort of that, it almost has a Mumford and Sons feel.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. So yeah, that was a fun song to put out. We put it out in November because we were doing crowdfunding. So we needed to show people, This is what you're investing in if you pre-order the album through this website, and then we can make this thing happen.
Yeah. Well, and I loved it. I remembered it because it showed a lot of presumably the area where you went to high school.
Yeah, it's actually my childhood neighborhood, Central Hillside in Duluth, Minnesota. And it's where I grew up. And I grew up, I was a 80s baby and a 90s teen. So we were going for that 90s teen vibe. If you watch the video, there's so many little nuggets in there of things like a Discman at the beginning, and the big handlebar banana seat bicycle that I ride around, and a JanSport backpack, and the overalls. I mean, we really, didn't hold back on the nostalgia for this one. We were playing Foursquare up at the Shack, which is where
That's right. I'm remembering now. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and one of the things that non-locals might not have recognized is that we had a local cameo in there. When the basketball goes off screen and the camera pans over to a guy in a letter jacket, a Central High School letter jacket, who grabs the basketball and throws it up, that is local star Don Ness, former Mayor Don Ness.
Oh, sure. Oh,
Don and I grew up in Central Hillside. We did not hang out as teenagers, but we both went to Central High School. And he was a little bit older. He's a little bit older than me. And I remember him being this really cool basketball star. So I said, Don, can you fulfill my teen childhood dreams of hanging out with you playing basketball? And he did not hesitate at all. He's like, heck yeah, I'll be in your music video.
That's fantastic. And I did not recognize him. We have a mutual friend, a close mutual friend. I certainly know his work. What I remember is, and this speaks to my day job, when Google was going to go to some town and build a network.
Yes, the fiber project.
Yep. And I remember that Mayor Ness jumped into the Lake Superior probably nearly this time of year. I mean, it was, well, maybe not, but it was pretty cold.
He will jump into the Lake Superior in winter. He will jump into a crowd surfing. He will jump into your music video as a cameo. He's just that nice of a guy, and he's such a sweetheart. He actually has backed our crowdfunding projects the last 2 times. So my very first
Fantastic.
album was 2012. And he was one of the first people that put money towards it and then threw on his Facebook, hey, you guys should really be supporting local artists like Breanne. I'm like, oh,
Wow.
thank you.
That is some serious, that's fun. Yeah, I know I know his brother Patrick. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I'm so glad that you told us that because I didn't know to look.
Now you got to rewatch it, like pause on it because it's totally cute.
Well, now I'm going to send it to a few more people who would,
Yes.
that's
You totally should. Yes.
it's fascinating. But I love the song and it's all country, but maybe even more of the rest of the album is stuff I can remember going to hear on Prairie Home Companion when I was a kid.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we went into the studio, I was spending a couple of years immersing myself with Americana artists, folk artists, and not just, the national names that you would see in Americana Highways and Americana UK, but people locally like Vicki Emerson, Sarah Morris, Carrie Arnett, and some of these other artists that were just the sound that they had. I'm like, the difference in the way that I was writing songs with more heavier drums, and we didn't have fiddle for a full studio project before.
Oh, wow.
We did have our fiddle player on the last EP that we had done, but to craft the way that the pedal steel and the fiddle solo, I think Evan had a really good sense of that because he's, my husband and guitarist. He was already listening to a lot of what I was listening to, but to share that with the band and say, like this, like Caroline Spence, like, these artists, I would, the Highwomen, and, sharing Brandy Carlisle and some of these others. And so this was the first time where I did that pre-production work with Vicki, but I also really looked at reference songs for each song.
Wow.
And some of the references were really goofy, right? So I would write up a lead sheet and I would say, this one sounds like Tusk with Fleetwood Mac in my head, but also Wicked Games. So if you could make it, then that's Turning Stones. That's how it ended up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
When you listen to it, you go, oh my gosh, that's kind of like Tusk and Wicked Games had a child and it became Turning Stones.
Well, I mean, this is really a well-researched.
Yes. We had a little time this time around. We were ready to go into the studio March. It was that first week of March, and Rich Madsen called me on a Monday, and we just had this heart to heart. Like neither of us wanted to call it off, and neither of us wanted to go through with it. And so we just sort of, you say it.
Yeah.
But we both said it. And then 2 days later, the governor shut down the state anyhow. So we wouldn't have been able to. But when that happened, what I was able to do was spend time here at home, isolated, and rework the songs even more, take more time with them. And that really paid off. And then I wrote the title track when that happened. That there wasn't going to be a Juniper song on the Juniper album. And the song and the album have the word Juniper has 2 different meanings with those in that regard. Yeah.
Well, now we kind of have to get to the first song, the Central Hillside, is a bit of an outlier for the album as a whole.
Yeah, it is. When I wrote it, though, it was a slower song. Okay. And then I took it to our band, and usually what they would do over the last 5-6 years is they would say, this sounds good, let's do it twice as fast. And so and with heavy drums. And I really liked how it came out that way. It's the same thing happened with our song Rocking Horse, which is one of our more well-known songs for people that follow us. That song started off as a slower, sweet singer-songwriter tune, and it became more of a rockin' tune. And I really liked how Central Hillside sounded like that. But the rest of the songs, there were a couple where I thought, could we kick this one up? And it just didn't feel right to do that. So it is a little bit of an outlier. But then Juniper is a little bit of an outlier, and Turning Stones kind of is too. So I guess,
yeah,
what one of the album reviews we've had has said, this song has a little bit of everything. And I totally agree with that. It's like a box of chocolates. It's got a little bit of every taste.
Well, I think it was, and I think this is your own description, is that if the album had a pace, it'd be like Walk in the Rockies.
Yeah. So what happened was a few years ago, maybe four, I don't know, time's weird. But several years ago, I went on a work trip to Colorado, Denver, Colorado. And I added a couple of days on the end of my work trip where I could go to Red Rocks. And I wasn't able to go to a show, but I went to yoga at Red Rocks in the amphitheater. So where all the seats are is where we, laid out our mats and we did yoga. And then afterwards, I hiked trails around Red Rocks, and it was just gorgeous. And I could feel this different energy about the place. And when I was at Red Rocks, I noticed these little shrubby trees at the end of every row. If you've been there, they really stand out. They kind of look like bonsai trees. And I asked one of the employees there, I said, "What are these things? They're so cool." And she said, "Those are juniper trees." Like, juniper. Okay, this is a tree that is short. I'm 5'2". It's weathered. It's been through storms. It lives and survives and thrives in these high altitudes, getting pelted by hail and snow and sleet and rain and wind. So I thought, okay, this is it. Like the next album, whatever project, if it's going to be an EP or a CD, no matter how many songs, the stuff that I'm writing almost always could fall under that title of Juniper. So that's really what the album means. And that's why all these different songs fit, because it's all like little areas of life.
I'm so glad that I knew I was missing something, because juniper means gin to me.
Oh,
Juniper berry, that's where they get the gin. I mean, it's, I'm not even a gin drinker.
right. Yeah.
But that's all and I thought there must be I love that. That's a great.
Yeah. No, the song means something totally different. So I didn't have a title track for the album when we were going to go record back in March. But after isolation, I started practicing my guitar picking. I still consider myself a very beginner guitar player, even though I've been doing it for a little over 10 years. I haven't branched off pretty far from where I first started, like a lot of lead singer rhythm guitar players. So I've been working on my picking skills, and I was just practicing this picking style and started to sing the word juniper. Like, all right, Juniper's a person, and here's what she's doing. And I got to tell you guys, it's a pretty racy song. It's about lust. It's about relationships and, finding what you like, what you don't like, and what's out there, and what does this mean when you start doing things and getting into relationships. So it's not autobiographical, but I think a lot of us can relate with that feeling and how racy. I mean, it's pearl clutching, right? Like, oh my gosh, it's a racy song. But it turned out so cool. And so Juniper is a person in the track. Juniper is a tree in the album. And yes, the whole thing, it has the pace of like a long hike through the Rockies.
It is. Well, and there's a sense of going through stuff, but maybe retroactively looking at going through. So it was when I first listened to it, I thought Dead Men Walking should be that should be the finale. And then I listened like the second time, I was like, oh no, because the line that I kind of pulled out from Juniper was, "I am the answer, I am enough."
Yeah, like, am I enough? Am I the answer? When I went through the track listing, I think the reason Juniper ended up at the end, it just felt like the right place, because the other songs were so set where they were at. And it wasn't the opening track. Like, I knew that much. It almost feels like, to me, you're going through all these different things, and then that's the slow burn at the end. That's the lay back and chill. It's a total vibe. It's a total mood. It's the favorite of my 15-year-old. She's like, "When does that come out on Spotify? It needs to be on my playlist." Like, what?
Oh,
You want one of Mom's songs on your playlist?
Impressive.
I don't even know what to say about that. What should I sign for her? I don't know. But yeah,
lunch bag.
Right? Exactly. But that's where it landed. And I think it feels good when you listen to the album and you get to that track, you're like at the end of your hike and you're looking back on some racier moments. You're thinking back. It is retrospective though. The entire album. In the past, when I've written about loss and love and heartache, I've written about them. I guess I kind of do this now too, but usually I write it in that very moment and I release something really fast and I get it out there and I'm almost crying as I'm releasing it. And the release show is usually really raw and people are like, is she okay? So, that's usually how it goes. But with this one, part of it was the pandemic that slowed everything down.
Yeah.
And the other part was being really intentional and saying like, this doesn't need to happen. Not all of these songs need to happen. Not everything I write has to be pushed through. Working really carefully with sounds and how things go. So spending less time on this is the lyric and this is what it means. And I want everybody to read that and know it. Instead saying, there's more to this. There's the musicality and the chord progression and how things, like the stuff that Vicky helped me with, the intros, the outros,
Nice.
the arrangements and turnarounds and vocal voicings over chords. All of that stuff is so important. And that's, again, why it's our best work yet, because it considers those things as well. And it definitely is retrospective or it's introspective, but looking back. Yeah.
Well, and do you mind if I ask how much of it is autobiographical? Because
Yeah, most of it is. The second song, for example, Hard Time, that one is such a somber song. It is one that
I mean, it's from Central Hillside.
Yeah.
You're knocked off the hill for a minute.
Yep. And that's what life is like, right? Life could be bouncing, dancing, riding a bike in the hillside with Don Ness. And all of a sudden, no, you're in a depressive low right now. And the next 2 months are going to be like this, or the next 10 days, or whatever it might be. So I started writing that song for my mother who has depression. And I was just thinking, what could I give her? Because she loves my music so much and she loves singing along and she feels good when she sings along to any kind of music. But I think especially mine, because I'm, there's that relatability because she knows the story so intimately. They're her stories too. So when I wrote this song, I thought, what could I write for my mom that would help her feel better? That would help her just shake things off. Would help her speak out into the universe. Like, I want this to happen. Please, please go away. Go calm down, go away, get off my back. Right. So when I started writing it, I realized like, I need this medicine as much as she does. So then I started feeling, more of what I go through when I'm in a depressive low. I have bipolar 2. So I get like hypomania and I get mild lows. And then of course the grief and loss and PTSD from all of the experiences that I've had. So I started thinking, well, what are my lyrics? What do I say to myself when I'm going through this? And that's why it's the, carry me for miles and miles. My husband thought like, is that a religious reference? Because I'm atheist, but it sounds like, when Jesus walks in the footsteps in the sand. I said, no, babe, you're carrying me. Like you are carrying, not Jesus, you're carrying me. So I started to make the lyrics a little bit more for me. And then when the song was done, I let it sit because I wasn't working on an album. And then my brother Justin died in 2018. And
sorry.
Yeah, thank you. When we were in the neuro ICU with him, my mother and I brought my guitar in on the last day, and that was one song. There was a couple songs, but that one song I played probably 5 times that day, and then I played it at his funeral. And when I worked on it with Vicky, I told her I want to give this song not more emotion. It's full of emotion, but I want to give it chords that keep people in it, because I'm in it the entire time and I'm relating to the lyrics. But there's something that happens with music, again, the part that I'm still learning, that can really hold somebody in because they hear the way that E minor hit and they're like, whoa, and they're in it now because they want to see how that resolves or how it will keep going throughout the song. And then Evan put his guitar solo in there, and it's emotional. Like Evan knew Justin for many years before he passed. And to have that type of solo, from him, that's him speaking through his instrument. It isn't just play something pretty. He's playing like what he's speaking through his instrument. And when you think about it in that way and you listen to the song, then you're like, yeah, okay. And then just a fun fact about that song, if you wanted to listen to it again and listen for something, at the 3-minute 50-second mark, we caught a train. Yeah, in the background. So at Sparta, you're pretty close to some train tracks, and every now and then you might catch a train on a recording and a musician will go, oh, we have to do that over again. That train came through at like, okay, chef's kiss, right? It came in at the moment. So take a listen to it again. It's so faint, you'll miss it if you're not listening for it. But yes, the train, it's going on. Yes. Get that grief out of here. Like, let's let it get off my back. I want some ease my pain. That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that again now, because the song has such gravitas that's just, you know.
Yeah, when we recorded it, when we were rehearsing, I was telling Rich what I wanted for that song, and that is one of only 2 songs that have piano on the album. I said, I just want it to have all these different layers. And he's like, we're going to make it lush. I'm like, that's the word, Rich. I want to have a lush song. So he knew exactly what I was looking for with this. I wanted the instruments I wanted there to be many instruments to feel kind of orchestral, but to just be this, what he calls like a nice basket for the lyrics to sit on. So yeah, I'm happy with how that one turned out.
Yeah. As well you should be. As well you should be. The other one that I really like is I like Turning Stones.
Yeah.
There's something I really like the end of that. It's it's funny, what it reminds me of is in St. Paul we've got the Heart of the Beast Halloween puppet theater thing. And when I say puppet theater, it's in the woods and big huge production. But every year it's obviously with time when the living and the dead combine. But there's a song that they play every year, and I think they've done it they didn't do it this year, of course, but I think they've done it for, I don't know, I think we've been going for 15, maybe even longer years. And there's a sound that you can feel when you're in the audience. It's, sometimes it's the first 12-degree day, and sometimes it's 42 degrees, but you can feel in the audience where it's like, it feels like that's when that time is opening. And there's the end of that song reminds me so much of that.
Yeah, there's a cool effect that happens. I think a big part of it is that trumpet. So when the trumpet is just going, up to 11 at the end, and the way that it ends, you feel like you're sort of ejected from your seat. I guess that would be one way to describe it. And that song is about grieving through nature. So going, like, I just got to go for a walk. I got to go for a hike. I'm up in Duluth, Minnesota. I am as outdoorsy as they come. I have a bike. I have snowshoes. I have skis. I have kayaks. I have a fleet, actually. And so I like to get outside and in nature. And a lot of times I do that alone. And when I'm out there, I'm thinking about loss. I'm turning the stones, right? I'm looking at rocks, and then I'm like figuratively turning stones. I'm looking at what my life was like, where my life is going. With these losses that I've had, 3 immediate family member losses is enough to shake anyone into this, this space where you're out in nature and you are looking for some grounding. Like I need to see, I need to hear, I need to smell, all those senses to get me out of my headspace a little bit, but also then to process what's happening in my headspace. So that song, starting off kind of chill, then getting loud, then getting chill, and then getting loud, and building up into the end, I have all sorts of visual imagery of what that could look like in a music video with drone footage and with, like trails. I mean, like Sarah Morris's music video for All Mine, that where she's, you're running through the woods and you see pine trees and trails, and that's what Turning Stones is like. I mean, it brings you outdoors, and it helps recreate those feelings that you have when you're hiking for an hour and then you get up to the top of a peak or a vista. And that whole ejection at the end, that is sort of like, it's over. Trail's over. You got to go back to work on Monday or whatever it might be, but the song is done. I'm sorry.
You're going to have to see the Heart of the Beast Halloween thing. So they perform it in the woods down by the river.
Oh, I would love to.
Because it's so fun, because that is how I felt at the end.
Yeah, just like kind of shook or moved. Yeah.
Well, this is when, okay, now the living and the dead have met, and well, we're going to be then you have all shared soup. You're going to be having shared soup in a minute. I mean, it's, kind of that denouement, and then out.
I mean, post-COVID, it'll be pre-packaged, individually packaged soup.
Yeah. I'll just hand you a pack of top ramen.
It'll be like a pouch of soup, like in high school, and you just pop the straw in and you drink your soup out of the straw. Like a milk pouch bag.
Yeah. That's going to be.
Capri Sun.
Yeah, that would be absolutely. I can't wait to see that video, because I don't, because you've alluded to it, I'll ask you just a little bit. I mean, you have suffered a lot of loss in your life.
Yeah.
For people who are listening and don't know, I don't.
Yeah. I can give you the synopsis.
I was going to say, just because I don't want to,
Oh, no, I love talking about it.
Oh, well, then you're welcome to talk about it, but I don't want to be all pry. I'm very Minnesotan. You say what you want to say.
Totally get it. And that's a misconception that people have about grieving, and people who are survivors of loss, that it's sensitive to bring up that they have lost, and that or the names of the people that they've lost, or saying things like father, brother, or if they've lost a husband or a wife, saying spouse. But that it's a misconception. It's a myth. It doesn't make us hurt more. It doesn't bring up something we're not already thinking about. We think about it every day. It's ever, you know what I mean? It will forever be a part of who I am. And actually bringing it up gives us a chance to talk about the ones that we've lost, which is a phenomenal opportunity, because we're always trying to keep their memory alive. We're trying to hold on to memories that we have. We're trying to learn about things that nobody ever told us about them. So to talk about them is actually better than skirting around or not talking about it. So I'll just give you the synopsis about, some of the losses that I've had. And I'm careful with the word grief when I say, I've been grieving my whole life for a lot of different things, but I'll talk specifically about the grief of loss, because I've also been a teen mom, and I've been divorced, and there's all sorts of other things. But for losses, in 2006, my father died of suicide. I was in my 20s. 3 years later, my brother Tim was killed in a car accident with his best friend. There was a driver asleep at the wheel. And then in 2018, my brother Justin died in an ATV accident on a trail in Hayward. And it was, 4 days in neuro ICU before his heart gave out. So these are traumatizing losses. They're accidents, they're graphic, they're, we talk about in mental health first aid training, no bloody horror stories, right? When you talk about things, because it can be triggering for other people. All I've got are bloody horror stories. You know what I mean? And it's so I do work with a grief therapist for my post-traumatic stress and my bipolar, and just my grieving and processing that. I think that I've done a really good job healing from loss through music, through writing, through connecting with others. But there are some things that I've really not been great at. And I'm learning that through grief therapy, which it's been about a year now that I've been working with a therapist. And slowing down is one of those things. Going through projects slower, being more intentional about the work that I do, the things I write, the things I say. That's all something that I've learned in the last year. And then, the pandemic has also taught all of us a little bit about grief and loss. And, we are grieving the loss of what this last year was supposed to be. We're still grieving the loss of what we think might never come back. And that's things like venues and businesses and people being changed by this. We are being reshaped, and the person you were in 2019 is probably not who you're going to be in 2021 for the rest of the year, 2022 and beyond. And we need to take time to grieve that. One of my favorite quotes is, all change is loss, and loss must be grieved. And I can't remember who said that quote, but I really do believe that any kind of change that we go through is a loss, and we need to take time to process that.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, I can't remember who comes to. It's from the organizational behavior world.
Okay.
I learned it in grad school, so I don't know. It might be Peter Drucker or Jervis Bush. I don't know. One of those guys.
We can look them up.
Yeah.
I went to library school. I could probably look it up. So that's
Yes. Yes. You know how to search things.
I know how to search things. But you obviously know how to tap into some of those emotions for yourself, but also for all of us listening. I mean, there's a very, when you hear about a journey, whether it's retroactively or not, we go through the journey with you as we listen to it, and it kind of takes us to
what I tell people is, I'm not going to make you cry, but I'm going to allow you to feel. And if you want to feel something when you listen to this music, you go on and feel it, right? Like, I feel like Dolly Parton sometimes, where I'm like, honey, no, you're not going to cry alone in my presence. If you're crying, I'm crying. Like, let's just do this. It's okay. It's okay to feel. I used to do, I will do again, play music at assisted living facilities. And there was one that I played at where one of the residents' daughters happened to be there for a visit with her mother. And she came up to me afterwards and she said, you really need to stop singing sad songs. You had some good, happy songs in there, but these people here, they don't need to hear some sad stuff. They really go through some rough times. I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking you need a hug, but I don't know if you want one from me. We need to feel. We need to stop stuffing our feelings down and feel like it's not okay to feel. That's why we're in a lot of the polarization that we're in right now, and why adults are lashing out like 3-year-olds this past year in this pandemic, because we have not learned to feel and to manage those emotions that we have, and to collectively as a society say, yeah, it's okay. It's okay that he's over there crying at his lunch table. That's okay. I cried this morning at the breakfast table, or whatever it might be, but it's okay to feel. And I hope that when people listen to my music, they don't think I'm trying to make them cry, but I allow them to feel. And that, the track we released this week, Too Tired to Cry, it's about that.
That's just the start of that. Your voice on that it's got a fragility that's it's not a weakness, an openness.
Yep, absolutely. This whole album, a lot of my music, and what I'm hearing from more than one person is from the heart. It's always from the heart. It really is. I'm not making up something that I think is going to have a reaction. I'm truly opening up and saying what I'm going through, because I know it's going to, I've been told over and over again, it helps other people. And if it helps one person, that's all it takes for me. If it only helps me and no one listens, that's all it takes. But, with this album, I really want to branch out. I want more people to hear, so I can reach them with these words, because there are people hurting right now. This song this week. So I made the connection between when it gets too cold to snow in Minnesota with the same feeling of when you're just too tired to even cry. We know we need to, well, go ahead.
No, I was but awesome. That's really, yeah.
Yeah, right? Like there's a connection there.
Amen is what I'm saying.
Right? When the weather is so cold that it can't even muster up some precipitation and some snow, it's deep in that temperature, that weather. Well, and it's the same thing with our grief. When we are so deep in that grief where we are numb, we're just too exhausted to cry. And how many of us have this past year been in that moment where we're numb, we're watching these Netflix we're binging on Netflix, and we're looking for any glimmer of happy. I mean, there's a lawyer who had a cat filter, and we're all gobbling up that video because
it was funny.
like we need some funny because we need to
Yeah.
feel, because we're getting
Fun.
numb. We're getting numb with that grief. And that's where I've been so many times. So when I started off that song, I really did want to speak from the heart. I wanted to, there'd be no frills about it. There's no, doctoring up of the vocals. I go in and out of pitch sometimes, and you can hear that throughout the album, because it's raw and real. And that is what it is. But that song, I think that people will listen to it and identify with that feeling, even though the lyrics are about, the pawn shop downtown and Masaba Avenue. Those might not be places that are relevant to you, but as you hear about those and you get to that chorus and Johnny's playing his pedal steel solo, you might start to think back on your own memories and bring your own people back to life. Bring grandma back, bring grandpa back, bring whoever has passed away, bring back the old times of sweaty bodies at First Avenue. Let's bring that back, recall those things in your head, because we are all like chasing those ghosts. We're trying to bring those people back. And that's what the lyrics speak to.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, you were saying you were going for certain sounds of Tusk and whoever mixed together. Were your bandmates, this album, were you like giving them permission or putting the like more emotion, like you were like, let that out too?
Yeah, I
don't
think
know
that
if
they play off of it. So I do allow, I'm a band leader, but I'm not a pedal steel player, fiddle player, or a bassist or drummer. I'm not any of those things. So I will sometimes say, go nuts on that. Go further on that. Give me more of that. And I'm constantly saying that sounded great, because when you have that positive reinforcement, people are always looking for direction when they're creating something. And if you don't talk, they're sitting out there going, is this, I don't know, she's not saying anything. So I try to talk a lot when we're having rehearsals, and I try to share a lot of examples. And I do listen to suggestions. So Too Tired to Cry didn't start off the way that it was originally, but one of our bandmates, our pianist, Matt, he said, wouldn't it be cool if it was just sort of this bass line at the beginning, this do, 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 kind of just easing people into the song. Like, let's try it. It took one try through. We said, yep, that's the song. That's how that's going to go. So I do open it up for people to give their pieces into it. And they play differently in this group than they do in other groups that they're in. For example, our pedal steel player, Johnny, he's in the Iron Range Outlaw Brigade, the rowdy boys from up north. And they play cowpunk music. And he has a totally different style when he's playing pedal steel with them than he does with us. And he's had loss. He understands these feelings, these emotions. And so I think that everybody in the band puts that into it when they're playing.
I just love that when you said that the guy was playing the guitar for your brother. That's beautiful. And I just didn't know if you kind of wrapped that for your bandmates to have for the whole album, or
I think that I haven't been with everybody in the band for a long time, but I think everybody in this band, we're all about the same age. We've all been through stuff, and I do bring that aura about me that you can cry in my presence. You can put this out there. You can I'm not gonna shame anything that's going on. I'm nothing but positive and supportive and bubbly, sometimes too energetic, especially if I'm in those hypomania days. I need to slow down. But they can see that I just want I want to hear all the things, right? Like I'm just super curious about what they, what other chords are going to do, what other instruments they're going to do. And so when you have that attitude at practice and rehearsals, people will say, I want to try this one thing. I want to bring up this one thing. I've got an idea for this, or I heard this one thing. That's what I want. I don't want it to be, here's your sheet music. I hope you can read music. This is exactly how it's going to go. That's not what I'm looking to do. And that's why this album is our first one where we are all listed as the producers. Breanne Marie and the Front Porch Centers produced Juniper, not just Breanne Marie, because everybody was pitching in with all of those suggestions, and we took a lot of time on the arrangements. I'll give a shout out to Kaylin, our fiddle player. She took the best notes. She's a violin teacher as well, so she was just scribbling tons of notes, and anytime we tried to remember what we did the last rehearsal, we'd say, well, what do Kaylin's notes say? But yeah, so we all produce this album.
I'm excited for when everyone will hear it.
Yeah, me too. We've had some Kickstarter backers who have, picked up the album already. The vinyl goes out this week, so I'm hoping people will share photos and videos. It is a stunning piece of vinyl. We did a three color pattern heavy splatter. So It's got like this funky tie-dye looking, my joke is that we made a record that makes the hipsters go ooh and ah. My husband works with vinyl. He buys and sells used vinyl. And every time he gets a new vinyl record, he opens up the packaging, looks at the cover, and then he pulls the vinyl out and he goes, ooh. Oh. Every time. Like, you never look at my records that way.
Well, now we will.
Right. And as soon as we opened it up, it's like, oh yeah, that looks great. So I'm hoping people will share when they see what it is. And then, so we gave all the crowdfunding people their CDs right away and their vinyl right away. And now we have pre-orders coming through on Bandcamp. So we'll start sending those out. And yeah, it releases next week. It's really tough because we don't have Electric Fetus in Duluth is closed right now. So we have no music stores up here other than Vinyl Cave over in Superior. But there's a couple coffee shops that will hopefully be able to carry our CDs and vinyl. Uso's Concert Cafe is going to have it in the drive-through. So if you drive through to get coffee, you can also pick up our music.
Nice.
Starting next week. And then we did a vinyl drop in the cities. So there's at least 5 stores in the cities that will have some vinyl and CDs.
Nice. And where can people find you online?
BreanneMarie.com. So pretty easy to look up. And of course, all the things are there, all the links to social media, to our press kit with photos and the band bio, upcoming shows. All of those things are on there. Our YouTube link.
Nice. And speaking of upcoming shows, you've got the release show on the 20th?
Yeah, Saturday, February 20th, 7 p.m. at Sacred Heart Music Center, The Heart. It's such a cool building, and people talk about how beautiful it sounds, and it's great when you're in the space. For me, it's a really special place. It's in Central Hillside. I lived in an apartment that was maybe half a block away when I was just a few years old, and some of my first memories are living in sort of the alley. Our apartment opened up to the alley of the Damiano. And so it was just a few steps, and I'd peek around the corner of the alley and I'd see this big, beautiful church. And about 10 years ago, or actually more than 10 years ago now, when we made our first album, I was talking about Sacred Heart to my family members, and they said, your dad went to school there. He was in Catholic school, and so he was in elementary school and would go to Sacred Heart. And he'd get in trouble for throwing spitballs at people. So
nice.
Like, it's a special building for me. It's the first place that I played live in front of a full audience. I signed up for a Duluth Does Grand Ole Opry, and I picked a Dolly Parton song. She's my idol. She's my hero. And I got up on stage. I played Coat of Many Colors. Ran back to the bathroom and was shaking, and these ladies were like, oh, that sounded so great. And I said, thanks, that was my first time playing in front of people. And they were shocked because there was like 300-400 people there that night.
Holy buckets.
It was amazing. I mean, that after that song, I said, I need to be doing this, whatever this is, I need to do it all the time.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. I miss it. So we're excited to be back at Sacred Heart next Saturday, the 20th.
Well, and that is going to be a place with all the feels, for an album with all the feels, for a voice with all the feels. That's going to be bring a little Kleenex, but bring a
Yes.
little,
Yeah.
Get out your tissues. You can cry at home on your couch. No, it's not all sad music. There's
Oh,
some,
because there's the Central Hillside is definitely one you could dance to. And I'm gonna say Dead Man Walking, you probably could.
oh yeah. Dead Man's got all the swagger. Yeah, you put on a pair of Spurs when you listen to Dead Man Walking. And I didn't write that song. Kirk Jennis wrote that from Iron Range Outlaw Brigade.
Oh, nice.
It's the one song we covered on the album, and Kirk was so excited the first time he heard us play that. He's like, I would love it if you guys recorded that someday. And we said, well, yeah, we're definitely recording this. That's also the first song I ever played trumpet on in the studio. So I got to record my trumpet. His name is Winston. He's a fancy fellow. I got to record Winston up at Sparta for Dead Man Walking. And then for the other trumpet parts on the album, my friend Matt Leibfried played those parts, and he actually had to record him in his house and send him in because, COVID. But yeah, it's, that's a fun tune. We'll play that. We'll do some songs off of Wildflowers and Tumbleweeds, actually from quite a few of the last projects. So it'll be mixed between this
Nice.
album and some older stuff.
Nice.
And you all get to be playing together on the 20th too.
Yes, we've been rehearsing at the house very carefully, masked. I wear a mask when I sing. It's not fun, but it is the right thing to do. It's the safe thing to do. And so I mask up, and I've been practicing, during the holidays when we were all on a break for the dial back. We didn't rehearse. And so I decided to practice singing with a mask on. So we've been rehearsing here at the house and, in the space where I'm in right now. And, it feels so good to play as a group. The difference between this and Sacred Heart is that live, that sound that you get from a quality venue. Sacred Heart is the sound in there. What I tell people is it sounds like you're standing, like you're swimming in your own sound or the sounds of the band. It's almost like a different plane. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's crazy. I mean, it's just amazing. If you've never been to a show at Sacred Heart, add it to your list after the pandemic to come up to, it's worth the drive to come up to Duluth and go to a show at Sacred Heart. Any show, doesn't matter what the music is, the sound in there is phenomenal. And the space with the tall stained glass windows and the giant arches, the old hardwood floor. Yeah, it's a beautiful building.
Nice. Well, hopefully maybe next summer we'll be able to see you play there. Some fun.
Yes.
We'll trek up to Duluth, but until then we'll look forward to the CD release and the CD release show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yay.
And I people should find this. People should take the time and to hear you play it all the way through. So
It'll be fun.
Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.